The purpose of this video is to get you started on your assignment for editing background sound effects for long-form film projects. What I have done so far is import the video using a sync point and positioning everything properly at the 2 beep. So if I tab up to my audio 2 beep, we can see I'm at the visual 2 and I'm at 58 seconds. I've imported the OMF already. It's ready to go. So this is sort of the busy work at the beginning of a session. Now we can start diving into things. I'm pretty familiar with this OMF, so I'm going to move a little quickly on it. These two tracks here are dialogue tracks. Highlight them, copy them with a C, nudge myself up at the P key. There's a voice track, hold the shift key, hit tab or mark down with the colon, and now I've selected those two tracks. I hit paste, command V, and those are my 2 tracks of voices. Now here I have 12 tracks of hard sound effects. The problem is my default desk only has 4 tracks for hard sound effects, so I need more tracks. So I'm going to click on any one of them. I'm picking the last one. I'm going to tell it to duplicate it, and I need 8 more copies of it. 8. There they are. So now I can highlight, and I don't even have to be very neat about it. Just highlight all of them, 12 tracks. Copy, Command C, hit the P key to bring me up to a sound effects track. There I am. Hold the shift key and hit colon until I have 12 of them selected. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Paste. So now I have copied very quickly everything from the OMF up to my default desk tracks. I'm done with the OMF. Hide it and make it inactive. Next thing I want to do is drag in my 3 sound effects that I've already pre-searched. They're in a folder on my project called Sound Effects Search, Peak Background 1, 2, and 3. I'm just going to drag those in. I'm going to hide their names. So you can see I've picked 3 tracks of varying loudness. This one's very sparse. It's like a neighborhood. This one is a slightly busy neighborhood, a busier intersection. And this one is the sound of the city from a balcony. It's the sound of just the rush of a city. Note, you can look at these and tell that there's nothing distinctive about them. There are no car horns popping out. There are no people talking. There are no squeals of bus brakes and things like that. Background sound effects are to be boring. Boring as can be. We don't want anything in here like a police siren drawing our attention out. You look at the picture here and you can see where these guys are is very boring. It looks almost like an auto parts store on the border of an industrial park. I mean, there's nothing. There's an establishing shot. There's nothing around there. So I've deliberately picked very, very sparse ambience tracks for the backgrounds. So once our sound effects are loaded in, we're ready to start cutting up, and we've got some prep work here. We need to make sure we're in grid mode. So I'm switching to grid. Make sure you're on time code and that the grid is set to 1 frame. Make sure your nudge value is set to 1 frame. And I always like to make sure this should always be set on time code. So now I'm going to group these 3 tracks together because I want to edit them as 1 unit. So what you do is you highlight the 3 tracks anywhere. You just highlight the 3 so that the names are lit up on the side here. You hit Command G. That brings up the grouping window. You could rename it, but personally, these are very transient. Once I'm done with this scene even, I don't even care about the group. So I'm not even going to name it. I'm going to save some time and just do. All right. Now when I select any one track, they all highlight and they will act as one. The first thing I want to do is clean up the very beginning. So I'm going to nudge myself up to 1 minute. There it is. Separate the region with a B and delete it. And on the other side, hit Tab. I'm at the end. I want to find the very last scene, the very last frame of picture. There it is. Interesting. It's a little short on the fade, but hit B to break it. So I'm ending it exactly at 1:30. Now I've got it cleaned up beginning and end. I want to see my grid, so I'm going to click here on the word grid. And now I can see my 1 frame grid. And now I'm going to start nudging through the picture and separating the regions, all 3 of them at once, because they're grouped together, every time the camera changes position. Nudge, nudge, nudge. And I'm just holding the nudge key down. There, go back. I'm straddling the cut right there. I'm going to separate the region with a B. Keep going down. That's what we call an establishing shot. This is very standard 3-camera position shoot. We have character 1, character 2, and then shots like these that establish where we are. So there's an establishing shot. Nudge, 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 nudge. There's character 1. Nudge backwards. Straddle the cut. Separate the region with a B. He nods to somebody. There's character number 2. Separate the region with a B. Keep nudging. Establishing shot because we see both of them together. Separate the region. Character 1. Straddle the shot. Separate the region. Establishing shot. This is so common in editing. Establishing shot. Character 1. Character 2. Character 1. Establishing shot. Back and forth the dance goes. Character 1. Now this is an unusual shot because he's going to look down at the peak antifreeze and then we're going to cut to a close-up. Generally, unless there's some weird reason, I treat this as one camera setup, one position. The ambience track shouldn't change as we go from looking at him here to looking at him here. It's the same guy, he's standing in the same place. Now, that's just how I feel about this particular scene. You may certainly run into situations where for some reason you feel the sound effects backgrounds should be different when we cut in on a close-up like that. That's totally up to your discretion. So we go from character 1, character 2, separate the region. Now, here's somebody new, our spokesperson at the end, separate the region. I am not going to dedicate another 3 set of tracks for her one line in this particular case. Again, there's no hard and fast rule. If you feel you've got the tracks to spare, create another set of 3 tracks and stick her on it. But I feel I'm going to just leave her on guy number 1 track, and you'll see what happens, why I'm going to do that. Now here's my problem. I need more tracks. I'm going to stagger these, as we talked about in class, but I only have 1 background sound effects track left. I need 5 more tracks. So I'm going to click on this first one, secondary click on it to duplicate it, and say give me 5 more copies. Excuse me. So there are my 6 background sound effects tracks that I'm going to use for this scene. That scene is guy number 1. I'm going to leave him. He's going to be the first set of tracks. Guy number 2 will go here, and establishing shots will go here. That is an establishing shot. So right away, I'm going to make sure my grid is looking good. Yep. I'm going to move this down to my establishing shot track. Those 3. Make sure you skip 3, right? We're working in groups of 3 here. What's this? That's still guy number 1, stays put. That's guy number 2. Move him down to our middle tracks. Establishing shot comes all the way down. Just want to make sure I'm still locked to grid. It's really important that we keep these locked to the grid. All right, that's guy number 1, stays put. Establishing shot comes all the way down. Guy number 2. Now here's that weird jump shot on his body, but I'm treating that as one scene. There's guy number 1. Command Z, stays where he is. Guy number 2. Here's our spokesperson at the end, and guy number 3. Now again, I'm just economizing on my tracks here. I could take her and I could create a new set of 3 tracks and put her on it all by himself. And the truth is, if I felt that she would need something dramatically different, I mean, she's in the same parking lot as these other characters. Because she's in the same parking lot, I want to use the same ambience. Let's say we cut somewhere else and she was inside the store. Well, then these ambience tracks wouldn't work, and I would need a new set of 3 tracks with different ambience for inside the store. But she's out there with them in the parking lot, so I want the same ambience tracks there. If I were to put her here or here, the mixer would have trouble automating going from adjacent scenes. When you go to automate for film mixes, you want to make sure you've got a gap here that you can grab, so when you automate, you won't end up with weird ticks and pops on the scene changes. So that's the whole reason we're staggering tracks, is to aid in automation. Having tracks that are adjacent to each other like this makes it very difficult to automate around that edit scene. Oops, the edit scene. Command Z. So that's why I'm leaving her up there. So now we've done that part of the project. We have staggered our tracks. I'm going to solo up all 9 of these, and if we've done it properly, we should hear no difference as we go from scene to scene. And it's important that we don't move forward until we're certain that these tracks are still at unity gain and we don't hear any weird jumping up and down. There should be no automation, no plugins on here. Good. If we heard any weirdness at all, we would have to start looking at our faders and make sure that everybody was at unity and that we didn't have any weird automation or plugins on there. So far, so good. Next up is right now, that sounds very seamless when we play across it. And it may continue to be that way, but we're not sure what's going to happen at the mix. And the big concern is if the mixer does some dramatic EQ or compression or something, level changes here, we could end up with little ticks and pops as we exit one set of clips and enter the next set of clips. So what we like to do is put a 1 frame fade in and out across these. And the fade that we want is equal gain. So I like to do the going in frame first. Oh, we need to make some groups here. I forgot that part. See how this all acts as one track when I click on it? These ones are not. So I'm going to highlight the 3 tracks, Command G, make a group. And again, these are very transient, so don't worry about naming them or anything like that. Whoops, Command Z. So now I'm going to tab down here, zoom in. I'm on this first crossfade. And the nice thing about having grid on is I can pretty much grab it anywhere and highlight it, and it's going to give me exactly a frame. Hit the letter F to throw a fade in there. Hit Command F if you want to double check what kind of fade it is. So the first one I want to hit Command F and check it. That is not what I want. I don't want equal power, I want equal gain. That's the fade I want. Cool. And you'll be able to visually see it. Same thing here. Command F for the first time. I want equal gain. I believe now after this it will always be equal gain. Now if we play this, we're going to hear a weird little dropout because at this very instant right here, there's no sound effect. Everything fades out. So give it a listen. We don't want that. So we take this one and we nudge it 1 frame earlier. Now we've got a nice 1 second equal gain crossfade. We shouldn't hear a bit of difference. If you have the wrong type of crossfade selected, you will hear either a slight bump in loudness or a slight dip in loudness. So again, highlight, F, nudge earlier. We'll check all these at the end. Highlight, F, nudge it earlier. And I'm just scrolling down here. Highlight, F. Now you might say, why are you always moving this lead one earlier? And my reason is, if you remember, when we nudge through the scene, nudge, 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 I always separated the region on the first frame of the next scene. So by moving this crossfade up, I'm straddling the cut a little better. At least that's how I feel about it. And it seems to work. I mean, would you really notice if the frame was off, if the crossfade was off by a frame? I don't know. Maybe for some scenes you would, maybe for others you wouldn't. Nudge that up. Fade, F. If I go to do anything, I always try to justify it in my head with some sort of reason. I say to myself, all right, I'm going to nudge this. Which way should I nudge it? And then I say, how can I justify this? So when I explain it to my students, it makes sense. All right. F. Did I move that last one earlier? F. I don't think I did. Nudge. I didn't. We'd probably, hopefully, catch that on playback. Highlight F. Nudge it forward. Highlight F. Highlight F. Nudge it forward. And this will probably need a longer fade on it during the final mix, so I'm going to leave it for now. Now, again, if we play across these 9 solo tracks, we should not hear any difference at all in the gain because we've done an equal gain crossfade. If you hear any weird bumps or thumps or dropouts, you've done something wrong and you got to go back and address it. If you're concerned, do 1 or 2 crossfades and play them to make sure you've got everything set up properly. All right, that's the hard part. We've got all of our crossfades in and everything is smooth. Let's just play it from the top. It'll take 30 seconds. We'll just make sure it's smooth as can be. Oh, we heard something there. All right. I will claim that is an accidental, that's a mistake. I left in there on purpose so we could catch it. There, see, I missed the crossfade. Back, play through it. Oh, looks like I missed 2. Yeah, I left all these in here on purpose just so I can show you. You know, I don't want you to feel like, you know, I'm perfect or anything. Now, what I just did now, all the work we've done so far, is most of your grade, okay? The assignment is to make sure you learn how to do this. The fun part of the assignment now is that you get to mix this project. And I want you're on your own to mix it, but there's one point I want to make, and that is it won't take much. The whole reason we checkerboard these is so that as the camera moves around, we feel the sense of movement to keep the scene from becoming boring. Now, my opinion is almost all the energy here is coming from the 3rd track. I'm going to ungroup these now. And ungrouping them is easy. See how these are lit up over here? If I just unhighlight these go back to acting as individual tracks, which is how I want them to act now. I'm going to do just a quick mix on them. For character number 1, I'm just going to pull back on these 3 dB. You'd be surprised at the difference it'll make. Here's character number 2. I'm going to do the same thing, 3 dB. My back of the napkin math is this. I want the establishing shots that are on the bottom here where the camera is most distant from our characters, so I want that to have the most ambience. As we zoom in on our characters, I want there to be a little bit less ambience so we feel a little more intimate. So right now I just took the heavy background sound effect and dropped it 3 dB. Now on camera number 2, just for the heck of it, I'm going to pull the second set down 3 dB again. So down here, everybody's at unity gain. Right here, everybody is 2 tracks are down 3 dB. Right here, 1 track is down 3 dB. So I just varied those up a little. Now let's just play across that, and we should feel very subtly a change in the ambiances as we move the camera. Now, is that right? Probably not. But I just wanted to, because you have to do the whole mix. I mean, you just can't randomly go in here and adjust some quick levels. But my goal is to show you that it doesn't take much adjustment in the background tracks to really make that camera move around as we cut from scene to scene. So keep that in mind. Now, what I like to do is try to get the backgrounds right, as close as you can in your mix. You know, I start with the voiceover, get him up around -2 VU on your VU meter. Once you get the voiceover tweaked and compressed and EQ so he sounds good at -2, start laying in these background sound effects underneath his voice and get a feel for where you think they belong. Now this is how I would handle it. Once I have all these sound effects at the individual levels that I want, I will highlight all of them and create a new group, Command G. And don't even bother renaming the group. There. And then on that group, I will go to any one of the faders and I will tell it to go to volume trim for automation. And now I can adjust the gain of the entire group up or down while maintaining the individual levels within the clips. And then I will balance this against everything else. That's just one other way to tackle it, so that I'm not moving 9 different faders individually. I'm grouping them all together, and I will adjust them that way. So that gets your background sound effects in and cut and crossfaded. And as I said earlier, that is the majority of the grade on this project. Now enjoy yourself, continue mixing it using the techniques that I've been describing in class. Get the voiceover up around -2 VU. Start adding in the background sound effects, add in the hard sound effects. Make sure your mix levels are around -24 LKFS, and print them. Just follow the handout, follow the instructions, and you'll do very well on this project.